everyone, so quickly this is going to be another Halloween tutorial, and it's showing you how to do bullet wounds. I did it in two different methods. They're both fairly simple but effective, and not the most complicated things in the world. This is like one with an it's like more of an entry wound with a burn around it, and then I also did an exit wound one as well using wax. This one is using gelatin, so it's stuff that you can buy in the supermarket. It's stuff that's really easy to find and you can just play around with it and try different things yourself. Also, this is homemade blood set, so it's great, and I think this blood looks quite realistic. Even actually I think it's way more realistic looking than the gel blood that I used, which you will see in the first look that I show you, which is the exit wound one with the wax. So I'll leave a full product list on my blog as normal, which will be linked to below, but in the meantime have a look at the video for the two different tutorials. There will be times below if you want to skip the first one and just go on to the second one, which is this, but either way you'll probably have an idea from the pictures at the front which one you prefer, or at the start. So yeah, here you go. Okay, so for the first method today, it's going to be the one with the exit wound bullet hole, and it's going to be made using a nose and scar wax. So this one here is by Ben Nye. I got it in a flesh tone so that it just pretty much blends right in with the skin. It kind of looks like skin when it's on, and it's kind of quite a thick consistency, but it does start to melt in your kind of fingers and get sticky in your fingers as you're going along. So I would advise having a little bowl of water beside you on the table, or some moisturiser to keep your fingers moist so that they don't get so stuck to the wax. Then you want to get a little ball of wax, just about this much. I just used a spatula like this to scrape a little bit out, and you really don't want too much wax. And just stick the little ball to your forehead and then wherever you want the wound to be, and then just blend that into the rest of the skin first and press it down. It's kind of going to look like you've got a wart or something on your face to start off with. That's the little mound on. I actually have baby wipes beside me as I go along to clean my fingers and keep the wax off them. Once I've that amount done, I'm going to get the back of a paintbrush, or a makeup brush, it doesn't really matter what you use. I'm just going to dampen it a little bit, so this will make it so that it doesn't stick to the wax, or the wax doesn't stick to the brush. It doesn't have to be sopping, just a little bit damp. And then poke a hole into your mound. You could also make the mound maybe a little bit more spread out if you want. It's up to yourselves. It kind of looks like a spaghetti hoop stuck to my forehead now, but now you want to carefully, so I do poke it right back to the skin, so it looks deep enough. And now you want to just carefully, as carefully as possible without actually lifting it from the skin, start pulling out the edges so it looks like it would, like at the start of CSI, I think it shows a bullet coming out of skin or an apple or something, but it's kind of like this where the skin is just splayed out. Now this is just a really kind of rough version of it for you, but it kind of comes out a little bit different every time you do it, which is kind of like what happens with all these like special effects things. And you can make it splayed out as much as possible. So I think I already said it, but you definitely want to make sure your hair is away from your face, because this can be sticky. But if you can see there, that's how it is sticking out now. And I think that's all I'm going to do for maybe make it a tiny bit more round just in the centre. So I'm just going to make sure my brush is clean of wax and wet it again. I'm going to put some black gel liner into the centre of the actual wound. So you want to make sure you use all matte products for this, because you don't want, I'm going to have like blood on it afterwards, but I want the black to look matte. So I'm just using a black gel liner by Inglot, and I'm using a small brush to pop this in the centre. And I like the Inglot gel because it's matte, so that's why I'm using it. For the outside, I'm just going to start stippling kind of a few bruisey kind of colours just around the outside, because you'd imagine the skin would be distressed. You can just make this up as you go along, because it's always going to look a little bit different anyhow. Anytime you see any of these special effect bullet wounds, they always look a tiny bit different. So I'm going to use a stippling sponge like this. This is just a black coarse sponge. I'm going to first use a little bit of this colour here by RCA May, and it's in shading. So something that would be similar would be like the Maybelline Colour Tattoo in the taupe colour. Or I have also this one by Screen Face, which is kind of a taupey brown as well. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of this and you might need to angle it a little bit to get it in around the wax. I'm just using my finger then to blend out the edges. So it just looks like the skin is kind of distressed. And next I'm going to use a blending brush and a red blusher. This is a cream blush, so you can use whatever you have. Pick up a little bit on the brush and just start slipping it around. I'm just going to get a smaller brush then and apply some of that red to the inside of the wax. Lightly pat it around, right around the outside. Next, using one of my bigger palettes, I'm going to use this dark kind of plummy colour because it's a little bit bruisey looking on a brush, and just lightly pat it around just the very outside of the bullet wound first. And then going into your slightly bigger blending brush, you can pick up a little bit more of it, but it won't be as dense, and pat this around then. So it's just to kind of give a slightly bruised or burned effect. So I always find building up in layers will always get you the best effect. So just like that. And then pretty much just to finish off, what you can do is if you wanted to, you could make your own blood gel by mixing some food dye in with gelatin, a little bit of glycerin, or you could mix some of your blood, like your gel, your fake blood, in with it as well. And that way you'll be able to get blood into the wound without it actually going everywhere all night, because it will kind of set like jelly. But I'm just going to use normal blood for this, because I'm taking this off to show you the next one in a sec. And this is a gel blood anyhow. It's just not all of the shops will have a gel blood, but I'm going to pick some of that up on my brush and almost like pack it in the centre. That's why the gel would be good if it was a little bit thicker. So you see, I'm just applying this all over the wound and all in the wound. Just going to get my stipple brush then and just almost stipple, get the brush on the back of my hand and stipple some of that blood around it. And if you feel you want to spread out the edges of that wound a little bit more now, you can do that at this stage and then just cover up again with blood. And then I'm going to really fill it up and tilt my head forward so that the blood spills down as if it was naturally coming out of it. Just going to put a big drip of it then just coming down directly underneath the wound, and then that's pretty much it. So that's method one, done with wax. So it might take a few goes practice, but it's really simple to do once you get the hang of it, and it is pretty effective, especially because you get that lovely texture and the you know, it's sticking out and stuff like that. So especially from a profile view, it looks pretty good as well. Yeah, and I'll just go ahead and show you how to do the entry bullet wound now, and this time it'll be using gelatin. So you can buy gelatin in special effects makeup shops, or you can just get it from the baking section in the supermarket, which makes it super easy and accessible and affordable as well. It's really not that expensive. So I have the Dr. Oetker one, and it's just gelatin, so it comes in a powder form. There are little sachets in it, so just like that. I'm going to be doing the exact same thing I did 3 years ago, I think, in the video called Make Your Own Blood, Wounds and Burns or something like that. I don't know, I'll link to it below. But it's just using gelatin, some glycerin and then water. And then you literally just mix them together and put them into a little container like this, and you can either just pour in some hot water and melt it that way, or you can put in cold water and then put it in the microwave. So you'll probably be you definitely want to have something that's microwavable, because you'll probably be popping it back into the microwave every 10 or 15 minutes, because it does start to harden as you go along. So you have to make sure you let it settle as well, because you don't want it to be too hot. Another method would be to put it in something and then sit it in hot water. So you could have a little pot with hot water and sit this into it so that it melts that way, and that way it won't get too hot. So you want it to be that consistency. And then I've already gotten a few bits of tissue paper, and you want ones that don't have any pictures or what's the word I'm looking for? You don't want any designs on your toilet paper, so just go for the cheap and cheery one. And you don't want them to be 2-ply, you want them to be 1-ply, and just put them into rough, like, circular shapes. You'll probably want a good few of them, because you want to build it up in layers, kind of like the way I did when I did the wound on my hand. So you can either use a cotton bud now or whatever you want, but you just want to start brushing this onto the skin. It's absolutely safe for the skin, don't worry. It's just made of gelatin and glycerin and water, so it doesn't hurt the skin or anything like that. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit on this like really cheap paintbrush I got in the supermarket, and just brush it, just a light layer, roughly over where I'm going to put the bullet hole. I'm going to put it a little bit lower than the last one so my hair doesn't get caught in it. And then once that first layer is on, I'm going to get some of my tissue. Don't worry if your hair gets into it, because just some warm water will free it up. And that's probably too big, but yeah, it's way too big. So I'm just going to make that a little bit smaller. And the first few layers, I want them to be a bit bigger anyhow than the top ones, so that it's a little bit more of a mound. So just like that. The gelatin will get really, really sticky as it's drying as well, but that's fine. And then just keep brushing on layers and adding on more of the tissue paper. Make sure you don't use a good brush. I mean, it does come off with hot water, but I still wouldn't trust using it with a really good makeup brush. And one thing I should say as well is you don't want the edges to be pure straight. You want them to be kind of raggedy. And then if the edges of your, where the tissue paper is, seem to be a bit thick or not like blending in with the rest of the skin too well, all you have to do is get a little bit of warm water and then use that to blend it into the skin. Another thing I should have mentioned that you can do if you want, with the gelatin, you can add in a little bit of concealer or a little bit of foundation if you want as well, so that it'll actually make it more your own colour and it'll colour the tissues a bit better. So that's another thing you can do as well. I'm not going to do that at the moment because I want to colour whatever of the gelatin is left over with some food dye to make it into blood. I think I've about 8 layers done, so I'm going to just do a couple of more and then that will be nearly enough. Don't worry again, like I said, if you get it on your eyebrows and stuff, because it just comes off with water. So that's why I kind of prefer it to latex. You don't have to be so careful with it, and of course you can get it much easier. So that's as many layers as I'm going to do, so I'm just going to grab the hairdryer and dry it quickly. So that's pretty much it done now. I did use the hairdryer. If I had dried it in between layers, it would have been much better. Now, I don't make the same mistake as what I think I did, where is if you use a bit too much glycerin, it stays a bit too sticky. But that's fine. All you have to do is get a powder puff or some kind of puff and just press powder over it, and that'll help take away the stickiness. So I'm just using a loose Verdell powder. It really doesn't matter. And then I can apply all my makeup then over it. So I can feel it now, and there's absolutely no stickiness there whatsoever. So you wouldn't have quite such a big white expanse on your face if you had applied your colour foundation in with the mix at the start, like I said there. But what I've done now here with what I've left over, I just remelted whatever was there, and then I added in a few drops of food dye. So to get that colour, this is really liquidy now at the moment, but it's a really nice kind of deep red, really good blood red. So I popped in some red food dye. This is the Goodall's one. Now be careful with food dye because it will stain your clothes and everything else like a mofo, so you have to be very careful. And then to take away the really bright red look, I put in a couple of drops of the blue food dye as well. But I'm going to get some foundation now and stipple it in place. I'm going to use a good thick foundation, so I'll use my Derma Blend. Now you can use your normal foundation brush for this, that's absolutely fine. I'll use my Real Techniques one. I'm just going to stipple the foundation on top. Okay, so once you've that much done and it's roughly the same colour as your skin, you can always, you don't have to worry about it too much because you're going to be putting loads of shading on it. So now it's time to make it look kind of bruised and burnt again, a bit like the last one. So again, just pick up your kind of browny colours or your mauvey colours and start stippling it in place. I just find creams are handy to start off with. So the good thing about gelatin is it does move with your own face, but because there's toilet paper in this one, it is going to feel a little bit, it's going to feel a tad, it will feel a tad stiff. So concentrate most of it on the centre. So the main difference between like entry wound and exit wound bullets is that, well, the entry wound would always be a little bit smaller than the exit wound. So really the one that I did there with the wax, you could have made it a lot bigger and a lot more messed up. But with the entry wounds, they tend to be a bit smaller, but especially if it's a close range one, it would have more of a burn. So what you could do is do an entry wound on one side of your face and the exit wound on the other side of your face. Which could look really cool. I'm going to start doing the whole, the actual bullet wound. So you could just get a brush to get the initial wound. You can use tweezers as well, but this will do. So it's not going to be pulled out as much as the exit wound one was. I don't want the ridges to be too big, so I'm kind of going around the inside a little bit. So again, go whatever size you want. I'll just leave it at that for today. And then again, back in with my Inglot. Oops. I'm going to go back in with my Inglot colour again and just colour all the inside of that hole. Actually, just putting in a load of it now. I'm going to make sure there's no skin to be seen. I'm going to use a matte black eyeshadow this time. So this will be just around the actual hole, so the burn part. I'm using the Inglot Matte Black. And I'm going to kind of layer back over with a lighter colour again in a minute. I'm just going to go over with one of my kind of more skin colour browny ones again. I'm going to go back over with some of the red again. Starting to look pretty gross. But the good thing with the gelatin and the toilet paper as well is that because it's textured, it'll look like that horrible crepey burnt skin. And then get a little bit more of the black on a smaller brush and put it just around the hole. My crappy cheapo brushes that I don't care about, and be careful and try and get the head back so it doesn't go everywhere. I'm first going to get it into the wound itself, and it's fine if bits come down because you kind of want that. And you can dab it in place with that sponge that we used at the very start. So what I'm going to do is let the gel cool down a little bit so that it's not quite so runny, and I'm going to put a little bit more then back into the wound. Yeah, so that's okay for that one, I think. The good thing about this blood though, compared to the gel stuff that I have bought, is that this will actually set, so it won't keep running and it'll stay kind of put for the evening, and it has that kind of slightly more realistic but dark glow to it. Now I know this burn is a little bit too intense for what it is, but it just gives you an idea, and you can just either make it a smaller area, or you could bring it out and make the whole face look a bit more gross or messed up or whatever. But yeah, that's it for the second type of like bullet wound you can have with burns. So yeah, any questions, leave them below, but I will leave some tips and stuff on the blog letzmakeup.com, which will also be linked to below, and there'll be more pictures there as well. So I hope this was helpful. Thanks a million for watching, guys, and I'll see you really soon, hopefully next week, for another Halloween tutorial. So long, guys.